What's up, everybody? This is the Action-FLIX with John Jerva. I am your host, of course, John Jerva, coming at you with another exclusive interview. Today, once again, I don't know if this is my fourth, fifth, I lost count, but it's always a pleasure to talk to this man. Listen, I'm going to throw accolades at you. I know you're probably like honest or humble and everything, but you're a pioneer in independent action cinema. You're a trendsetter, trailblazer. Eric Jacobus, you've done so many things for the world of independent action cinema, which I am also an advocate for here on the website. So how are you doing today?
Great, thank you. Thanks for having me on the show. I appreciate the accolades. I'll accept the pioneer term.
Okay, so we'll go with that one. Sure. So since we last talked, the last time I talked to you, you was the anniversary of Contour. We talked about that on the day that you dropped that on your YouTube channel. So what's been obviously we're going to talk about the book, but what else has been going on? What have you been keeping yourself busy with?
I still have my company, Super Alloy, and we do motion capture. I would love to talk about all the fun stuff we've been working on, but I can't because video games are like government secrecy level. But aside from writing the book, it's my second book. I've also been working on a new film and trying to get through life as a man who's 44 now, and the trappings of being 40, and trying also. And I started up a Discord, which I think would be interesting to your viewers. And it's the Stunt People Forum 2.0. For those who know, we used to have a forum back in the day before social media,
right,
in like 1998. And then once YouTube and Facebook came along, people started sort of posting everything on those platforms. And then so the forum closed down. And then now I think there's a resurgence of people who want to sort of get back together and have very intentional communities, right? And Discord's a great platform for that. So I started Stunt People Forum 2.0. And so it's the link's on my website, ericjacobus.com. And we would love it if you joined us. We got all kinds of interesting, you'd be surprised. There's some like celebrity level action people in there too.
Now, in terms of that, like you also again, I always got to make fun of some of you guys because like when famous people start doing podcasts, it kind of takes. It's like I can't compete with you guys, but you're doing Action Talks. You've got a plethora of talent on that show. So talk about doing that and what made you want to start up that podcast. It's probably the same thing. I just wanted to talk to people, talk action with people and stuff like that.
Yeah, I really wanted to understand how other action designers and stunt performers, action stars, directors, camera operators, whatever, right? Choreographers, how they saw action. I went through a little bit of a renaissance period myself when I got hired to do the choreography, the stunts for God of War, and I learned to move and choreograph in a completely new way, and it sort of got me interested suddenly. It kind of broke that shell that I always had, which was that Hong Kong style is the only style that you should use when you're making a fight scene. If you do a kick, it should be shot like this. If you're doing this, this angle should have this many moves, right? And I had all that it was my Bible. And I still believe a lot of that. I'm still a diehard Hong Kong filmmaker. I really am.
I'm a fan.
I think I've refined kind of how I interpret that. And I still think that it's the greatest action cinema of all time. I really do. But I did want to understand how other people in the world saw action. I wanted to interview Japanese choreographers, American directors, and I wanted to know what goes through their minds when they design action. And it was really an education experience for me. I just wanted to kind of see things how they did. And it got me through a really tough spot in my life. I was going through some pretty serious family stuff, and I just kept the podcast going every week. It was like a religious observance. Every week we're doing Action Talks every Thursday, right? That was just how we did it. And so, yeah, we did like 45 episodes. I say we because my, fellow stuntman, Phil Kiss-Martoni, was editing the episodes. And then interviewed some amazing people, had some incredible opportunities to talk to some of the best in the world. I talked to Kensuke Sonomura, Kenji Tanigaki, who both did The Furious recently. I got like an early insight into how they kind of saw things before that movie even was on the map. And so for me, it was just a huge learning experience. is a huge time suck doing a podcast. I don't know if you're aware of this, but doing these, and I commend you, but doing these episodes is a lot of work. And I just didn't have the bandwidth to continue it. I have some episodes on the back burner. It will come back someday. It's just right now it's on hiatus.
Hey man, listen, I have a full-time job. I come home, I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna do this, and I end up falling asleep in my recliner for the rest of the night. So it's I totally get it. I totally get it. So let's talk about the book, Badass on a Budget. Love the title, by the way. Of course, I got here. Let me flash it up for you. We'll give it.
There it is. Yeah,
there it is. There you go. So let's talk. Okay, so obviously. This is probably a culmination because, like, with all the years of experience and everything that you put into it, it just made sense that you would make this type of book. But I wanted to talk to you first before we talked about Badass on a Budget, because I like If These Fists Could Talk, the one you wrote, because if you think about it, it's like, because if you're an action fan, you know, it's like it's violence. There is violence, and there's a lot. Because I remember growing up, and like my mom, like my parents were pretty cool to a point, but they're like, you know, they thought like something would happen to me because like I was watching all these movies where, you know, like people were getting blown up or punched or kicked and stuff like that. So talk about the concept of that and the, you know, just for action fans, how we understand it as opposed to mainstream people.
Oh yeah, I think that the inspiration for that was my first book. If These Fists Could Talk. I have a copy of it right here.
Yep,
it's this one right here, and you can get this on Amazon.
Yep,
Kindle and ebook format. The impetus for that was there's a lot. I mean, I had at the time 24 years of choreographing violence, and I had kids, 3 kids now. And I kind of wanted to understand.
Yep.
Yeah, you know, at a certain point, you kind of want to know what you're doing.
Yes, exactly.
You know, and I did, you know, like you watch Contour, and when I look at it, I'm looking at myself 20-something years ago, and I'm looking at myself, I'm going, I have no idea what I'm doing. Like I'm going through like an artistic process, obviously, but like I have no concept of what, you know, violence means in the broader scope of society. I don't know what impact it's going to have on people. Right. And frankly, I don't think that an artist has to really think about that. I think sometimes like it's not like that's the social critic's role, and they can talk all day about that. And I don't think that an artist who makes violent films needs to like concern himself or herself with what impact this is having on people. I actually don't think that. I think that same with people who make violent video games. I think that it's good to have a pillar at your company to understand the sort of broader implications of your art, but I don't think it's necessary. But I found it fascinating, and one of the things that I kept running into in the press and just in pop culture in general is this kind of idea that like violence is this other part of being human, right? It's kind of like the Hobbesian idea that violence is this like demon within us, right? That would be like the more kind of traditional religious way of thinking it. The Darwinian way of looking at it is it's this reptilian or primal, or you could say like a primate part of our brain. And there are all these theories about how violence is this other part of us. And I'm thinking about this and I'm going, well, that's not true based on my experience, because whenever I make an action scene, if I'm choreographing a violent scene with a killer, you know, let's take the most violent example. If you were to do a serial killer action scene, you're not choreographing that as though that character is an animal. You're choreographing it based on they have motivations. They have very lofty ambitions, very lofty. It's very emotional. It's very human. There's nothing animalistic about this at all, right? So it was a little bit insulting to keep hearing that, you know, violence is animalistic, violence, and it's kind of like, well, hang on. When I make violence, I take a lot of pride in that, sir, and I find it to be a very human enterprise. Right. And yet, I don't advocate for violence. So I wanted to know the sort of like nuts and bolts of violence, and frankly, it just hasn't been written about very well. I've done a lot of research for years now, almost 10 years of research on this.
Mm-hmm.
And almost nobody has really put their finger on what it is. They just sort of pontificate about how it's bad. They give examples of it, but they never really put their finger on what it is. So I wrote a book about it, and that was my first book.
Absolutely. And again, like you just like the thought processes you've had, because like I said, you do so much research and like everything, because if you do something, you go all in, but it struck a chord with me, because like I grew up, like I was watching Chuck Norris movies when I was 6 or 7 years old. I remember my dad sitting me down. I always know the Lone Wolf McQuay was the first movie we watched. That's a pretty violent film,
Yeah.
so, but it's like, and I thought about it. I was like, I like to watch movies like, like John Woo movies, like people are getting shredded apart and this and that. But it's like, it's okay because it's a movie. Like even my daughter now, she's 11. And I'm starting to gradually like show her more and more, but not too much. But she says it, and I love what she says. She says, "Dad, it's just a movie. It's not real." So that's like the course. Like like when you're watching stuff like that, it's like, because I remember when they were putting labels on things, like parent advisory things on records and this and that. It's like, who's to say what is what, and because this is going to make me a bad person and stuff like that if I watch this or if I listen to this. So I totally get it, and I love the fact that you wrote a book about it.
Thanks. So. I think that the conversation about it is much more interesting than any pontificating. And I don't give a formula for world peace. Nobody has that. But I try to ask some questions that just haven't been answered yet. And I hope that if anybody's interested in violence, that they check out If These Fists Could Talk. I think it asks some interesting questions.
All right, but let's talk about what we're here for. Badass on a Budget. Listen, if anybody knows about guerrilla filmmaking, it is Eric Jacobus, because I've been with you a long time. I was back in the day, like, kids don't know how weird it was, like what it was like back then, like when the internet was starting to come up and like people were jockeying for positions and stuff like that. And we touched base about it a little bit in our last talk, how when you were starting out and, putting videos out there and everything. So how did this book come about, and was this like something you always thought you knew you were going to do, or was it just like it just kind of like just manifested itself? Like,
no, it really just came to me at a certain point after I released Fists. I was trying to research and figure out what my next book was going to be, and then that would just hit me like a ton of bricks. I don't quite know what triggered it. I think there were various things that happened in 2025 that really kind of shocked the indie action world. And I think that the big one was Dennis Rule dying in April, a little over a year ago. And Dennis was probably my closest creative collaborator. We did I think we did some of my best stuff together, Contour, Rope-a-Dope. We did some video games together, and so there was with him, I think he gave like half an interview.
I was trying to find stuff he didn't really, it's not out there because
one of the last jobs we were working on together, I hired him to do mocap on a game that was unfortunately canceled, but he came in, and I never knew that he was 2 years older than me. I knew he was a little older than me somewhat, but I didn't know he was 2 years older than me. So here's a 46-year-old at the time, running around doing motion capture like he's 20. And he was still moving like he was 20. Best shape of his life, it seemed. Had a little bit of gray in his hair, but I looked 10 years older than Dennis did at that time. And the directors asked me, "Who is that? Who is this guy? Like, this guy knows mocap like the back of his hand. He moves. He's happy. He's like coming up with interesting ideas." And I was just like, well, he's the best. Simple as that. Like, you have the best guy. The simplest thing. He's the best guy. If you want anything, like, he is the ultimate Swiss Army knife. He could also AD your mocap shoot. He could also direct your movie. He could write a film. He's done everything. Right. And yet this guy, like, never wrote this stuff down. He never gave interviews. And it's like, we lost a pillar, and we got to get this stuff down on paper. We have to, like, leave a legacy. And so I think that was one of the big drivers for me, is getting all this down into book form, so that it's, it's like a little communist manifesto. You can carry it around in your pocket, and you bust it out whenever. Oh, how do I do catering? Right, there's this thing on catering in here. Right, how about directing? How about things like team building? Right, what does day one of production look like? It was those things, and just very practical advice that I wanted to get down on paper.
Absolutely. So here's the cover again. So I love the cover. Who did the cover for this?
There's a tragic story behind the cover.
Oh,
So
okay.
the main photo of the two of us in the air, I'm on the left, and we have a photo of Stevie Irwin on the right. Stevie Irwin's one of our main mocap guys, and he's also a co-star in the latest movie we're doing. And then Steve Reedy's down there in the corner. We snapped that from Contour, but the shot of the two of us in the air, that's actually from Rope-a-Dope 2.
Yes, I was gonna say, yeah, exactly.
And that move was done by Dennis, but
Yeah.
due to certain estate and legal issues, we decided not to him on the cover.
Okay, understandable.
And Stevie, I told Stevie, I was like, "Hey, grab me that kick real quick," and he just snapped a photo of it. So now it's Stevie on the cover. So
absolutely,
he's
all right,
picking up the legacy, right?
Yeah, but it's just like, because I heard you mentioning it, like you talked about, like he was like, you said he was like healthier than all of us and everything, and it's just like, it sucks when somebody's taken away like way before, but it's just, and it's like then I'm thinking to myself, like, how healthy am I? It's like I wake up every day, I'm like,
you have no idea.
Yeah, exactly.
You have no idea. Your numbers might be perfect.
Yes, and then it's just something, and it's just, but again, such a loss. I remember when I heard about it, and the video you guys put out was so wonderful, like all you guys talking about him and everything, and just Dennis Rule. Anybody out there, if you haven't heard of him, just Google him on YouTube or on the internet, and he'll pop up. And he did the one movie I remember, American Brawler, or was Barrio Brawler? It was more of a serious. It was a serious movie because
it's a great film.
Yes, it's such
amazing.
It's an underrated martial arts film. Yes.
Yeah, Jose Montesinos directed that, and I remember like going and seeing that in the theater and going, "Oh my God! Like, you guys have made it. This is exactly what we've been aiming for." Even though it was an asylum film and they shot it in 12 days, it was insane what they did. But we were all convinced at that point that Dennis was like on his way to the top.
Yeah, and it's such an underrated film. And like I said, I always tell people to go check that out. But let's get into the book now. So, oh my God, where to start? Actually, so probably start at the beginning here. So let's talk about the ZBAF. So what is the ZBAF? So let's go through that and then talk about that.
The ZBAF is a zero budget action filmmaker, ZBAF. And I say zero budget kind of loosely, right? Really,
you have to have some budget. It's like
you're gonna have something, right? Like, but I'm talking about sub 200,000, right? Once you hit 200,000, you're sort of on the radar. But under 200,000, nobody cares about you. Nobody's asking questions, and only like really nefarious people are gonna try and shut down your production if you're under $200,000 because you have nothing.
It's
right?
Like you're going to Dollar Tree for craft services.
That's exactly what you're doing, because there are some like non-negotiables that you just have to pay for, like insurance. If you want to have a corporate structure to get to pay out dividends, you got to have an LLC, which is like $800 a year, and you're going to be doing tax. There's another $500 a year. So like just to exist in most states, you have to have like some amount of money. So that's why I put it under 200,000. That's zero budget.
Okay, so
people call it micro budget too.
Yeah, absolutely. So if I'm in a spot, like I'm 53, so I'm probably like my time has passed. But if I'm a young 20-year-old whippersnapper, so like take me through, like, what is the first thing that you should think about if you want to be a ZBAF or zero budget action filmmaker?
Well, it is kind of aiming towards the feature film. Mm-hmm. You could apply this to short films, but when you're reading it, it's like this is really geared towards getting you in the door with a feature film. Mm-hmm. And you'll find, and we found that when we did Contour, for example, and we actually got it into the market, suddenly we were legitimized, and that comes with all kinds of pluses and negatives. Suddenly you're compared to Scorsese, but now you like exist on this like other level, and there's just no reason, in my opinion, that every stunt person who makes previs, who can shoot and edit previs with sound effects in it, they can make a feature film. But there are just like certain trappings. And so what the book is to sort of like take everything you know, which is like you have most everything you know, and then here are the trappings so that you can navigate these waters and get a feature film done and out the door to get you into that next stage. And that's what I want to do. I want to bring up young 20 somethings who have interesting ideas. They want to express their action vision. They're probably capable of doing better action than anything that's coming out of mainstream Hollywood.
Yeah.
And it's going to be more creative. It's going to be funnier. It's going to be more uplifting. I think it'll be more relevant. That's what we're seeing now with films like Obsession, Backrooms. Right? These are lower budget. Backrooms is still 10 million, which is a lot to me, but the scope of things, it's a low budget film. These are filmmakers who have this interesting kind of take that's really feels out of the box, and everybody loves it because it's not the same thing that we keep seeing. And so I really would love to see the next generation of filmmakers who, again, are like really good at filmmakers already. They know how to do it, to get their feature film out the door and just invade that both the theatrical and the streaming world with feature films that are just interesting and off the wall and challenging. Right. And I think that the average person is like really eager to see the world through that filmmaker's eyes.
Now, you mentioned streaming. Now, streaming changed the landscape, if you think about it, because like before streaming came around, it was just people jockeying for either getting in cinemas or like direct to video. But streaming really changed the landscape. So do you think that would make it easier for like people to get noticed as opposed to back in the day?
I think that I don't know. Like, I think I mentioned this on another podcast that I don't think that the market is oversaturated. At the same time, it seems like there are just as many gatekeepers. Yeah. So, just like during the home video era, you could have brute forced your way into the home video market and made VHS tapes and put them in video stores. And some people actually succeeded really well doing. Gone in 60 Seconds is a book a movie I reference all the time. $100,000 movie done in 1979, I think. Written, directed, starring a stuntman who just made a video, put it on VHS, and sold the rights and made $40 million. Right. Yep. So even back then, when it seemed as though there was just no way into the market without knowing the right people, it's like, yeah, but you have this crazy film like Gone in 60 Seconds that takes off because it's so good. And I do believe that that's still the case. But what you have to do, which in the early days of streaming, there was this sort of like honeymoon phase where Netflix and Amazon and all these companies, they would go to filmmakers and they would say, "What do you want to do, kid?" And he'd say, "Well, I got an idea about a unicorn or whatever." It's like, "All right, here's $5 million, make it." Right. And then they had the whole carousel filled with garbage. And those days are over. Right. Yeah. You're not getting on there. You need to come to them with a film done for the most part, unless you're huge, right? Unless you're in that top 0.01%. The rest of us, you have to have your film ready to go with a trailer, key art, music cue sheets, all that crap, right? You got to take that to them, and then they'll look at it and they'll go, okay, or no. And then you can get onto streaming. So in a sense, like those pathways still have a lot of gatekeepers. I think that they're fairly legitimate a lot of the time. And there is one major difference, which is that YouTube lets you just put it up there for free. And you could just put your movie online, in which you couldn't do back then. That is a major change.
Now, it's also because you mentioned like Backrooms and Obsession and everybody. Now it's like this big thing now. It's like, oh, YouTube makers are making it. You were doing that like freaking 25 years ago. It's like, I was like, this is nothing new. It's just the fact that for some reason horror seems to stick it more than action does, which I like action, but I'm a super fan of, I'm an action guy. But why do you think that is? Why do you think, like, in terms of like what you were doing with your two, as opposed to these horror filmmakers, like why is horror like much more prominent than action? I think it is.
Yeah. Actually. Good question. It's always been that way, right? Even in the home video market, the horror section, it was massive section. And I remember going A to Z down the horror section because I was so fast, and I've watched like A to Z Literally.
And today I'll go to like a place that sells physical media. And it's like, how many shark movies can you make where beautiful people get stuck on a raft?
Right.
And
Right.
like, it's like,
People love it.
what is somebody's giving money to these people to make
people love it. Well, it's not much, right? It's not much. You could probably do them for $50,000 maybe.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
That's the Asylum model. And with action, you can. I shot a horror movie in 1 week. Once upon a time. That movie will never come out. It was my first paid gig, but we shot it in a week, and the director literally just left the camera rolling all day, and he wouldn't even, we would just be talking, and he would just point sometimes, and because it would be rolling, and you just point. Oh, here's something interesting. You didn't even hit record. So he shot like, well, that was like 10 tapes times. So he shot 70 hours of footage for this horror film that'll never come out. Dirt cheap. He made it for nothing. I bet that budget was $2,000.
Absolutely.
You can do that, and you can kind of get away with murder in that sense. And I think that genre is always going to be around, and God bless them. I think it's a great genre. It does well in every country.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think another reason why is because, like, if you're making it's more expensive to make an action movie, because when you're doing action sequences, even if it's just fist fighting or something, that costs more than like having somebody yell and run away from the guy with a knife. It's not like
yeah, you got to do multiple takes.
Yeah,
you got to probably secure the location. Interestingly, like if you run after someone with a knife, they probably won't call the police on you as quickly as if you're doing a fight scene. I've had the police call on us way more often for doing this.
Yes.
Because we have to do it multiple times. We're like stuck there. We have to do this shot, and it takes like 30 minutes to do this shot.
And they think you're fighting. They think you're like actually like there's like some scrapping going on or something.
Yeah. The average kind of passerby is like incredibly dim-witted when it comes to that stuff. Like they just don't notice that 90% of the time is us looking at a camera, right? They don't remember that part.
Yeah.
So it's just it's just the nature of the beast. If you have the talent to make your action film, then you can do it really cheap. And cinema history is filled with these guys. One of my favorites is Koichi Sakamoto. He did this dirt cheap movie back in 2002 called Extreme Heist or Wicked Game.
Yes, I just talked about that.
Yeah.
Johnny Young Bosch, he came out with a movie called Spades. I'm like, why didn't anybody bring this to me? It's like I found it scrolling on Prime Video.
Yeah.
I was like, what is this?
Yeah. And so, I mean, that was really inspiring to me. That's what prompted me to make Contour.
Yeah.
But that's because everybody in that movie just knew action, top to bottom, right? Koichi Sakamoto had done Power Rangers, and they were literally shooting this movie while shooting Power Rangers. I think there's a part with like an explosion, and I think the explosion was on the other side of a hill from the Power Rangers shoot. It's in my interview with him.
Yeah.
And so they were stealing shots while they were making Power Rangers. So you kind of have to have that level of brain trust and ability. It's kind of like game development, right? Like you can make a game for $0 if you have an artist, a programmer, and a producer who all kind of like know the entire process, and you're all freaks. You can do that, but that's rare. Those people get scooped up really quickly into software companies, right? And it's kind of the same issue with stunts, where if you are a Swiss Army knife, then it's you're going to be swept up into the system very quickly, and then next thing you know, you're gone 10 months out of the year, and you don't really have time to make your passion project. So what you see then is just this like crazy empty middle ground between zero budget and 50 million and over. There's just not really much action in that middle ground. There is still there is kind of a thriving B market, but these are these are quick shoots. They're 14 days a lot of the time. In terms of action people making action films, it's very hard, very difficult to pull that off without either without like the dedication to let's sacrifice the next 2 months to this thing, see what happens and make no money, right? Or let's just take jobs and like get out of Dodge and become mainstream stunt performers, right?
Absolutely, and the whole thing is the funny thing because I've interviewed Scott Adkins a bunch of times. Such a great guy, such a phenomenal tub. The funniest thing he's always said, he's like, John, he's like, the one thing if I wanted was to have more than one day to shoot a fight scene. It's like because he'll be on these big budget movies. It's like 2 weeks, like 2 weeks to film one fight scene. It's like but on the other hand, what you guys can accomplish with limited means, resources, and time makes it more prominent. That's why I gravitated towards because you could tell it's a love letter for you guys. Like you're putting your heart, your soul, your blood, your sweat, everything into it, and that's why it comes across. And you guys are able to do this, correct?
Yeah, and let's just be clear about something too. Like when you have millions of dollars, a lot of the time, if you
doesn't mean that you're gonna make something.
Yeah,
great.
like you might have 2 weeks to do an action scene, but
yes,
10 of those days are going to be VFX shots and like various crowd shots, and you got to get the airplane and the explode and all this shit that the producers are like, there's nothing, you cannot release this martial art film without helicopters and explosions, right? Like the perfect example is Shanghai Nights. Donnie Yen and Jackie Chan have this amazing fight scene in a tent.
Which should be enough.
Which is great. Enough. And like, and there's an uncut version where there's a ton of interesting shoe leather going on. It's like prime Jackie Chan stuff. And it's like, what happened to all this? And you watch the released one and it's like, they start fighting. And then it cuts, of course, to the British people going, I say, what is that? He like pulls out his telescope and then there's an explosion and there's a boat and there's fire. Nobody gives a shit about this. Like, show us the fight. But for whatever reason, the producer's like, no, make sure you get all the fireworks in and we can cut the fight down. That's just miscellaneous stuff. So most of your time is still going to be spent like pleasing producers and you're the money people who are like, well, I invested in explosions. I didn't invest in punches. Exactly. So we find that having, and I write about this in the book, and there's a chapter called Money.
Yep.
About how like having more money reduces your freedom. It just will. You will be beholden to powerful interests who are going to say, without a doubt, they're going to say, look, okay, so you got a 3-minute fight. Okay, so you can do it in one day, right? Because you're going to have a crew of 80 people because it's got to look a certain way. And like now, whereas if you had a budget of 80,000, you could probably shoot that fight for 5 days because you have a crew of 3 or 5. And you can do that, right? And so the money doesn't like money and creativity start to go in opposite directions in film. So I'm a big proponent of just getting however much money you can, and maybe that's $1,000. I don't know. I mean, our first feature film, it's kind of off the radar. You can watch it on YouTube. It's called Immortal. We shot it in 2003. We shot that movie for $1,200. It's nothing. It's nothing. We just spent it on costumes and power bars, right? And so like once you have your funds, you then say, okay, what can we do within this box, this small little canvas? And you'll find that sometimes the smaller the canvas, the more creative you can be. And what you get to do then is you get to be creative in whatever way you want. You want to try a wacky joke? Go ahead. Nobody cares. You want to try like some weird twist on the genre? Do it. Right? Nobody's stopping you from doing that. But when you have 200 million and those opportunities come up where you need to pivot and make a creative decision because somebody didn't show up or like there's a script rewrite, you can't pivot because you're beholden to all these different things. And that's why these awful decisions get made on these $200 million movies that come out. Nobody likes it. And the script doesn't make sense anymore.
So there you go. Absolutely. Well put, my friend. All right. So before I'm going to get into pre-production, but last thing I want to talk about the concept is story. Like, so how important is story? Because a lot of times I've reviewed movies and said, the story standard, but everything else was great in it. So it's so from your standpoint, how much do you need to nail that aspect of it?
Yeah, I used to not care because I guess I was very
10 guys in a warehouse. What could happen, right?
10 guys in a warehouse. It was my interpretive dance era, right? Like we just want to express ourselves with our bodies, and that should be enough, right?
Absolutely.
And like it worked, right? But at a certain point, it was the reviews of Contour that started hitting me. And some of the reviews are just kind of mean, but others like legitimately had good points, which is like there's a bunch of story stuff in here that doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense why he's doing this. And it got to me. I was like, oh yeah, I should probably give like good reasons for various action decisions and whatnot.
Sure. Yes.
Death Grip was sort of my working through that. Death Grip has a much denser, darker story, but I think, you know, like
I have that, but I love that movie, by the way. I know you don't. Yes, that's a horror movie if you think about it. It's like kind an action horror movie. Yeah. So I love that.
Yeah. I think we made that before the raid. And the raid came out 2011, but it was while we were shooting Death Grip. So we were kind of in that same kind of zeitgeist where it's like, well, let's go dark and make things kind of violent, and there's some gnarly gore in that too, like when I pull Alvin's face apart, right? And it's just stuff I would never do anymore, but
right.
But the task was to make a story that justifies and explains all the action and gives meaning to these action scenes. And I think that, you know, Clayton Barber, my mentor, he came in and came up with the idea of Rope-a-Dope with me. And that was just like the most basic of stories. And this tiny little story framework, which is guy wakes up in the morning, wants to get a hamburger, but when he gets knocked out, his day restarts. Super simple, right? And that we could tell an entire movie with. And so I was constantly then chasing these mechanisms, these MacGuffins that can like justify an action film. And I think that the secret to it is, after like struggling with writing screenplays for 20 years, like I think that the answer to this is not so much like we need to come up with a single location action movie like The Raid. Like that's not really the way to approach it. You end up just like down these very well-worn paths where it's like, okay, it's another human trafficking movie. It's another movie where they took your daughter. Are we done? Can we stop remaking Taken? I'm not going to point the finger at any recent movies that are coming out, but it's like,
there's one that's burning up the charts now that is exactly about that.
Are we expected, and am I expected to enjoy this despite the shit story?
Yeah.
So as somebody, and I just have to say this, it's off the cuff, like as somebody who's worked my butt off for 20 years trying to make interesting stories, to see something blow up that's as simple as they killed my brother or something, and then like creatively murder for 90 minutes, I just kind of go like, well, okay, the creative murder might be really good. It might be beautiful, but am I supposed to have a stake in this? Don't be disappointed if when I see this thing, it's like, it just didn't quite hit me.
Right.
You know, because I think it's incumbent on the filmmaker to like devise good story. And you know, that's not to say like you're not going to have amazing action innovation in these projects. There is some amazing stuff coming out of these. But like in terms of the story, I think I just have like a different code that I live by now, where it's like I've been stuck in Final Draft for 20 years trying to write interesting scripts, and everybody telling me like, nah, don't write that, like that's a boring story, it's been done to death. Right? Don't do Taken again, that's been done. Right? There's 3 Taken movies, you don't do Taken again, and then somebody does Taken. And so I go like, okay, well, like I don't have to like this.
Well, and it goes with the argument, like action, like, because we talked about it with on my podcast and ones that I've done with other guys and stuff like that. Action for action's sake, you know, like the action has to mean something. You have to care about the characters and stuff like that. So talk about your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that this goes back to my theory on violence too, which is that even mass murderers and serial killers and mass shooters, they have very lofty reasons for doing what they're doing. I think that one of the most fascinating books, which unfortunately is not available anymore, it's called Mad Men's Manifestos. And it's just a list. It's just a compilation of manifestos of mass murderers and the stuff that they wrote about. And every one of these manifestos is lofty. Right? So I'm going to go out and I'm going to eradicate as many people as possible because we're overpopulated, and like humans are sort of doing this to the world. And you start to go like, whoa, this guy's got this religious mission. and he's going out there and murdering people for his religious mission. He doesn't call it religious, right? He thinks he's atheistic.
Yes.
He thinks that he's like non-religious, but it's like, wow, this is loftier than anything I've ever heard, right? Like you have a global plan for what to do with humanity, right? And I think that in general, anybody who does violence, they do it for very lofty reasons. So, what was your question?
So action for action's sake.
Yes. So exactly.
Making you care about why people are shooting each other.
Exactly.
Or beating each other up. It's like,
and I think that like when we come to accept violence as this very human thing,
right,
with real motivations, that can be it's a religious experience for people when they do violence. It really is. And if you ignore that, you're like not respecting evil. And I think you're going to get blindsided. And I think it's hard to write good story if you think that violence is just like, I just do violence because I don't know. Like you have an awful reason to do it that doesn't make sense. It's not even a human reason because we've tried to divorce violence from humanity.
Yeah.
And so I always say that like even the most heinous acts of violence and terror, they have to be very well motivated in your script. And it's actually like, I think that's one of the easiest things to motivate. You can write an entire, in fact, I have the problem sometimes of just writing like villains that are just way too interesting.
Villains that are better than the hero. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, look at Korean films sometimes. It's like you'll have these like crazy motivations for the villain. Yes. You have to like fill that in with a hero who's got, you know, like the right motivations, right? And they're kind of struggling with paradoxes in life and their own hang-ups, right? And the villain doesn't have that problem, right? The villain gets to be completely consistent, right? And so so they get to go on a murder spree, and much as you would love to go on a murder spree, you know better as the hero. So
exactly.
I think that I think that, you know, there's a simple kind of piece of humanity to tap into there. And that to me will that'll kind of like remove you from the idea of action for action's sake,
right?
When you start giving real motivation for the most evil stuff in the world.
Absolutely. All right, now let's get into pre-production. Now I love this chapter you have: ignore coordinators like me. So talk about like
don't make a movie for me.
Yeah.
Don't do it. Like the number of people who have sent me rip-offs of Rope-a-Dope. They're like, look how cool this is. And I'm like, you couldn't come up with another fucking idea? Like you had to just copy, you know? Like I've had people go like, hey, I watched Contour. I made a fight just like Contour. What do you think? I'm like, I don't want to see that. I want to be inspired. I don't like that. That's old. I'm critical of that stuff now and I want to see new. And you know, not many people do that. That's literally 2 times that's happened. But
exactly.
But I actually have seen more than one Rope-a-Dope copy. But I think sometimes people are legitimately inspired. But I think a lot of the time too, they're trying to, and I'm talking specifically about stunt performers and stunt and fight coordinators. They're trying to make their short film to show a coordinator that they're worth hiring onto their project. And so again, you have a kind of short film that is just like, it's an epidemic on YouTube of these short films where there's just no reason for why the fight is happening. Except, again, he took my daughter, they killed my mother, whatever it is. And it's just a puppy. They killed his puppy. Yeah. Oh yeah, he killed my cat. Yeah, how about my cat? Now I go and I do this. See, look, I can do the pose. I can do the John Wick pose, right? Yeah. And then the head turn. Right, I can do that, right, and that's just not really. It's just not impressive to anybody. And every movie was doing that. Every short film was doing the John Wick thing afterward. And I can't speak for Chad, but I can only imagine him going like, "What are you doing? That doesn't make sense. Like, there's a reason John Wick does what he does.
Yep.
Like that's not something that everybody has to do now, right? Like the thing about what Chad did that was so genius, and I think he deserves a huge amount of credit for a lot of things, but the main one is like making a world for Keanu Reeves and an entire, not just a world, but like a system of movement that just makes total sense for this character. And what people took from that is, oh, we should all move like that now.
Yeah.
And it's and they, because they want to show that to coordinators. They say, hire me on the next John Wick. It's like I don't think they want to hire you on John Wick because you can do this.
Exactly.
The T-Rex thing,
Yeah.
like
No arms.
that's not going to get you onto the next John Wick. What's going to get you onto John Wick is you make a movie with an action scene that has story and meaning, and then they know that as a performer, you can act the action. That's what they want. That's what they're looking for. It could be a single punch, and I bet you they would take that over a guy doing this for 10 minutes. Judo, judo, right? That's what. So don't make movies for coordinators. Don't make movies for them. Make them for your audience. Make a good story. Act that action, right? And design from there up.
Now let's go. Okay, so this goes into the kind of like rehearsal and previs. Now, again, I've been watching action movies since I was like this big. Okay, so now the biggest thing is it's like you just said it. Show me something I haven't seen before. How hard? Like with all the movies, granted, big budget blockbusters, the low scale indie. How hard is it to create something that people haven't seen before? Like, I mean, how do you go like, okay, what are we doing here? Like, how are we going to make this like where everybody's going to be because like, again, The Furious, I love the film. Like the fights are awesome and stuff like that. It's like, and that's pretty much why it's like, they're doing different. Some stuff is different. Some of it's not, I'm not going to lie, but it's like in your mind, how can you create something different and how hard is it to do it nowadays?
I mean, like you could, this is what I call, in motion capture, I call it 2-second storytelling. Okay, if the mocap director asks you to throw a punch, there are millions, infinite numbers of ways that you can throw that punch. And it's all based on the story of that character, that moment, that game, that environment, right? And it all depends on how you hold your body before you throw up. I'm doing the Kratos thing. But if you're holding your body like this, it says something before you even throw a punch. Right? If you hold your body like this, it says something. If you're like this, it says something. Right? So you've already set up like your first block of like what this movement could mean. And when the average person sees this, when they see somebody cocking their fist back like this, or like Bubbles in Trailer Park Boys, right? Like there's meaning behind this. And so you already have a million options for just a way to enter into a punch. Okay, so that's the first part of the movement, is the idle pose. Like, how are you entering into? Okay, I'll give you one, right? One of these. Okay, the next thing is the anticipation. How are you going to wind up into the punch? Well, it depends on what you want to show. Do you want to show your cards? Fine. Wind up like a dodgeball throw. If you don't want to show your cards, just go for it, right? Another million options, right? Then there's the hitbox. Is it going to be down, across? Are you going to stumble when you hit, right? The fourth part is how do you recover out of the hit? And then the fifth part is what do you do afterward? That takes 2 seconds. And if you have an interesting story behind that punch, you will do something nobody's ever done. And it's just this punch. It's just this, right? Same move, right? On paper, it's a hook punch, right? It's a hook punch on paper. But when you do it within the context of a story and you give it real character, I call it the 5 stages of movement. It's just how to like break it down and give interesting variety. Once you do that, then like you have moved in a new way that nobody's ever seen.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah.
You know, so the goal of making things that nobody's ever seen is not to like repeat this. They call it twisties, where it's like this punch thing that they keep doing, right? This is like the one-on-one movement. The point is to like tell a story with those punches. So you could do this all day. You could give any combination of those twisties punches. It'll probably look exactly the same as every other version of that, because the motivation for that is just the same, right? It's like you're trying to do something that's very safe and very sort of like compatible with very streamlined shooting processes. And it's just always the same motivation. So no matter what combination of punches you throw, it's going to look the same. But if you do one interesting punch, then you've moved in a new way.
There, exactly. Again, and that's why I commend all you guys. Like it's because like with everything that people have seen and stuff like that, it's a true testament how creative you could still be, and especially with how long you've been doing it. So let me just throw it up there again. So we're talking about Badass on a Budget. This is Eric Jacobus's new book that we're talking about, how to make action movies with little to no money. Now, here's the next one. We're going into production now. Know your editing style. The editing, like I can't tell you how many arguments I've got into with people and stuff like this in terms of like how to edit an action sequence and stuff like that. So take us through your thought processes of editing for an action film.
Well, one filmmaker I really admire is Isaac Florentine. He's sort of
Okay,
like
yes.
he's sort of like the Israeli version of Desperado director. Why can't I'm terrible with
Robert
names?
Rodriguez.
Robert
Robert
Rodriguez. He's
Rodriguez.
Israeli Rodriguez,
Yes.
and and
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah, and when he was in university, he went to film school, and the way that he had learned as a child to shoot films was on an 8mm camera, and in his inspiration was a spaghetti western. And so the way that he watched the spaghetti western was, okay, well, you have the ECU eyes, right? The close-ups, extreme close-up on the eyes, right? And you have got the cowboy shot, and then you've got the hand on the hand near the gun. You've got the draw shot. You've got the fall shot, and he would just shoot them in order, because that way, when he played it back, he would even say action and then roll, so that he didn't have to edit it, right? So that when you projected the 8mm film, it was edited. There's no editing. You just develop the negative, and then you get the print, you put it in there, and it's done.
There you go.
And that means that it's not that he's not editing. It's that he is editing before he even steps foot on the location. He's already got the entire shot list in his mind. And I think that that's actually like a more intuitive way of shooting. I think any of us who grew up with camcorders, we would shoot like that, where that's just the assumption. We just thought like, oh, if you shoot a dialogue between two people, you have to shoot his line, cut, and then shoot his line, cut, and shoot his line, cut, and shoot his line. You just go back and forth. And you kind of see this with Hong Kong films. Like, I love this movie, Secret Rivals. The dialogue is like, it's literally every shot of dialogue. Like, it'll be on John Liu. It'll be a crash zoom in on his line. And it'll go to Wong Tao. It'll be a crash zoom in on his shot. And it'll go back to John Liu, and you're wide again. And it's a crash zoom in on his line. And it goes along, you're wide again. Crash zoom in. And it's like, oh my God, they literally shot this piecemeal. And so I think that it's like actually kind of intuitive a lot of the time for people for filmmakers to think in terms of the edit. They already see all the shots in their mind, and all they got to do is like get those shots, right? But what happened with the studio system is and that's also like the Eisensteinian montage style, right? And it's the same kind of thing. Like, you're gonna shoot a man's face, and he's looks like whatever, it doesn't matter, and then you shoot a bowl that doesn't have any more food in it, right? And then you shoot his face again, and you've created drama, right? You've juxtaposed these things. And what happens with the studio system is they realize, like, well, we should just cover everything over here. It'll be cheaper to just shoot this actor out, cover that side, shoot that actor out, edit it together. You know, editing technology gets to the point where it's like fairly easy to splice back and forth, because you've got the two reel system on the Steambex and whatnot, or the 6-reel. And then this idea of coverage is born. And what coverage allows directors to do is, I think that there are some filmmakers who don't really see in terms of the edit. This is nothing against them, but some people don't really see the same way. And there is this phenomenon called aphantasia, where some people, when they close their eyes, they can't really see images the way that other people, like, who have phantasia or hyperphantasia. My son has hyperphantasia. He literally has like photographic memory. He can draw what he saw a month ago. And the like images stick, but other people's images don't stick. And I think that the coverage system really benefited people who couldn't see the images. So what they would do is they would just shoot for performance, and they would shoot as much coverage of this person as they needed, and they'd shoot as much coverage of this person as they needed. And they're not really editing in their head, and they're thinking, well, we'll find the edit later. We'll treat it like a documentary. And Walter Murch, that was his entire philosophy of editing, is that, well, you should shoot as much footage as possible and find the edit later. And I just say that that's like absolute nonsense, especially with an action film. It might work. It tends to work better for dialogue because it's cheap to do retakes. But if you're doing action, you're falling on concrete. It is not cheap, and it's not nice to shoot an action scene. So you're doing all the action, the guy's falling on the ground over and over, because you're trying to find the story later. You know what I mean?
Right. Yes.
That's why a second unit director is usually the one who says, like, hold on. if this master, if he's doing a fall, all right, at least put a crash mat down there. We'll frame it out. All right, you do the fall on the crash mat. Don't eat it too hard. We're going to get a cutaway of it. Okay, we'll get the cutaway of the fall. Boom, you got it. Cool. We got our one take. That's all we need. So like a good, kind of like a visual thinker will take over on second unit a lot of the time. I think that would make sense. So some people don't have the ability, like I said, they have aphantasia, they can't see the edit. And so you're going to have to schedule and organize your shoot in a way that makes sense. And if you're making an action film, that means you have to make some very smart decisions, right? Where you cannot shoot masters of your action scene unless you have a lot of money and you're going to throw adjustments at them.
Yep.
Right. Every time you do this master and you're falling, you get an adjustment. $100 each time. Okay, pay that. That guy's going to do that for you. Right. But if you don't have that money, don't shoot like that, and get somebody to help you organize your shot list so that you're not doing that. If you are like an Isaac Florentine style editor like I am, then you're not going to have this issue. Like you'll already go in, you can shot list in your head or on paper, you can storyboard, shot list, stick figures, whatever it is. Then you can go in and just get the shots that you need. For The Living, which is called The Bag Lady when it was a short film, but we're going to feature with it. And we shot 12 pages of dialogue in one day in 7 hours because I knew exactly how my shots were going to look. I knew that these were going to be 3 shots with 3 people. I knew that this was going to be a 2 shot. I knew this was going to be a single. I knew these were inserts. I knew this was going to be a slow push. And when you know that stuff, you can shot list and be super economical and get out of there before, you wrap early. And we wrapped early all the time on that shoot.
Absolutely. Now let's talk about the neuroscience of action. So that's a chapter on it, because that is something that I think that a lot of people like. Obviously, it's like I've never heard it discussed before. The original book. So talk about that.
There are so many things to. Let me just give you an anecdote.
Sure.
I have this issue where my brain sees things a lot differently than most people in cinema who work in film. I can tell when a frame rate is 24 frames versus 25 frames per second. I could tell when we used the Panasonic DVX100, which was shooting 24p, and I was doing a playback on the footage on the computer. I could tell if it had the wrong drop frame. I see, and I'm deficient in color. I'm not colorblind, but I have no idea what good color looks like. I have no idea. That's why I wear gray and black. I just don't understand it. And so the way that the eye sees motion, the way I try and explain motion to people, is that when your brain sees something here and then it sees it here, if there's a meaning for it going from here to here, it will draw another frame here, right? So if the punch goes from here to here, it'll kind of draw a fist here in your brain. Your brain does this after it sees this one, which is so it's like reversing time and inserting memories in constantly. And sort of like the peak rate that it can do that is like 24 times a second or so. Or I guess that's like the minimum frame rate, because when you start to go to like 22 frames a second, 20 frames per second, it's kind of difficult for the brain to draw that stuff in. It sort of loses the meaning of going from here to here. That's why films are 24 frames per second. It's not necessary to go to 30, but going to 20 was just like a little bit too jarring.
Yeah.
Because actually the refresh rate is like 55 hertz or something of the eye, which 55 hertz is 24 frames per second.
Right.
So, and so there are all these aspects of action filmmaking that I think if you have just like even a little bit of neuroscience, and this gets into physiology of the eye too. It's not all neuroscience, but if you understand how the eye works and how the eye sees movement, then that can affect what your shutter speed is, what your lens is going to be, how you move the camera, and all this stuff kind of works into the human psyche. And overall, people kind of all have the same brains. We have different experiences, but we all kind of see motion the same way. There's not really any diversity of people and frame rates, right? There's not really anything different from person to person. So if you know how to kind of exploit the eye mechanics in the ear also, if you can exploit that, then you can sort of optimize your shooting style so that you're not spending a bunch of money, you're not wasting takes, you're shooting at the right shutter speed given the certain action. And here's another example. There was this phenomenon that happened around 2006 or so. This is when cameras started being able to record at 120 frames per second, 96 to 120 frames per second. Until this time, everybody in the video market was trying to figure out how to do slow-mo. Nobody could figure out how to do slow motion, which is like, for an action film, it would be really nice to have slow motion, right? And when we saw Ong Bak has these slow-mo shots. This is 03, right? It has these slow-mo shots that are just godly, right? They are the godliest slow motion shots. And we all were like, how do we just get a slow-mo shot of getting kicked in the head? How do we do this? Right? And none of the cameras could really do it. Because you're shooting at video, you're sort of locked at 30 frames per second, 24 frames per second. And so something happened where like these cameras came out that could do 60, 96, 120 frames per second. Right. The thing about video is that if you shoot, so what you could do then theoretically, if you took like 120 frames per second footage, you could slow that down to 24p and it would be 20% speed, right? That's how the math kind of works out there. There's one issue. The issue is that when you shoot at, what people decided to start doing is they said like, well, I don't know if I'm going to want to use slow motion, so I'll just shoot the entire movie at 120, right? Or I'll shoot a bunch of shots at 120, and sometimes I'll do shots at 24. If I don't know whether I want to do slow-mo, I'll shoot at 120. And then what would happen is that when you shoot at 120, if you don't play it back slowed down, the shutter speed is suddenly 5 times faster. So you see all these films coming out around this time period where the action is, your standard shutter speed of 1/50, which is basically the speed at which light hits the sensor and the sensor refreshes, right? It's like how quickly the light kind of goes across the sensor. You have shots that are 1/50, which is very natural. It's kind of like the human eye. And then suddenly in the next shot, it'll be strobe. It'll be like 1/500 or 1/250. And the average person's brain is starting to go like, wait, why is this one like a little bit smoother? And now we're at a strobe kind of show. Oh, it's slow motion now. And that was like a predictable kind of pattern where a shot would be 1/50 shutter, and then it would go to 1/250. And then I think the average person's brain was like, oh, they're probably going to do speed ramping here. Oh, sure enough, it's slow motion now.
Yeah.
And so you kind of lull people into this expectation that I don't think is actually benefiting you. I think that you're like kind of setting yourself up for failure a lot of the time because you're losing the impact when that happens.
Absolutely. Now, so in terms of slow-mo, like what is just the right amount? Like when is it most effective or when is it overused, do you think?
Yeah, like
I've seen some karate movies or some martial arts movies where it's like, I think it was all slow motion.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah, there's some like really bad movies that came out after that were just like, do we need all this slow motion? I mean, you could kind of accuse John Woo of starting that trend. Like
a little bit.
Like Hard Target is probably a 20-minute movie if you speed it up to normal speed.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. But like it's got a tone to it, right? You develop this tone when you have slow motion like that. So I do think it has. Yeah.
You make that decision, you got to go with it. It's like
go with it, and then people love that movie. But I think that if you don't have a purpose for it, then that's the wrong time to use slow-mo. If you have a purpose for using slow-mo, then it'll be very good. Like one of the things, like when we were doing Man Who Feels No Pain, there's a part during the finale. So Dennis and I fight coordinated this movie, and and action directed it basically. There's this part at the end where they brought in a phantom camera, so they're shooting 1,000 frames per second. And the big debate was like, well, what moves are we going to do at 1,000 frames per second? And Ray Carbonell and I had done this like 10 years earlier on this show called Time Warp, where they brought in phantom cameras and they just recorded stuff at 1,000 frames per second. And they're like, let's do stunts at 1,000 frames per second. And so there are some stunts that made a lot of sense, like a bottle break, super cool, right? Falling onto a table, not as cool. Like the table is like not breaking the way we thought it broke, right? So slow motion table breaking, not that interesting. Punching to the face, super cool. We did that in Heart of a Champion. But doing a hurricanrana, right, where you jump up and put your legs around the guy's neck, that was one of the moves. And they wanted to do that with a phantom camera. They wanted to shoot at 1,000 frames per second of a guy jumping up, the main character jumping up, putting his legs around the guy's neck, and then doing that whole thing. But the thing is, like, in order to do a hurricanrana, the guy who's down below has to hold this guy's butt, right? And so you see at 1,000 frames per second, he's like this, and he goes up, and this guy goes like this, dude holds his butt. And it's like the illusion is completely lost, and it's like a dumb looking move now.
Yeah.
So there's some things you shouldn't give away the secret, even though everybody might know how it works. Like you lose the purpose of it if you put it in slow motion.
It's like they were figure skating, like they were like a tandem at the Olympics. Like
yeah, and it just doesn't work in a fight scene.
All right. So let's talk about camera work. Okay, so now we're shooting an action sequence, and now take us to your thought processes. Of course, we've seen movies where it's like, yeah, and then it's like, whoa. It's like, so like, what's the barrier in between? So like, getting it just right.
So I try and do two things. I try and have a very coherent vision of the shot list. And then I try and give the DP as much leeway as they need.
Mm-hmm.
The DP, director of photography,
yep.
Who's sometimes the camera operator, not always, that person and the director, that relationship is sort of like the holy marriage that is sanctified at the beginning of a film and must be maintained. Like, it's the marriage. It's the one that's going to be contentious. I think that the director is going to have fewer fights with his producer than he will with his DP.
Right.
And the DP is the eye of the movie. And if that eye is not working, your movie starts to break. And I ceded a lot of authority to Drew Daniels when I did Death Grip. And Drew went on, he shot, Anora. Mm-hmm. And he's an amazing DP. And at a certain point, I was just like, I'm just going to let you kind of decide how this shot, I just need it here. I want to see, here's what I want to see. I want to see me go in and kick that guy. And you go, like, look up at the light, and you go, okay, give me 5 minutes. And you set up a shot. And like back in the day, I would have just said, like, nah, just give me the camera, just put it here and we'll just do it. Right. But he did was he brought consistency to it. Right. So I think that's a relationship that a director and a DP, you need to form that. And I hate to say it, directors, but you're going to have to give your DP a lot of leeway, a lot. Like, cater to them, bow to them, kiss their feet. A lot of directors are DPs for this reason. Mm-hmm. So you don't really have that issue. But if you're not a DP, and I'm not a DP at all, then you have to give authority to your DP and give them as much ownership as possible.
Mm-hmm.
So that's like the first thing. And then the second thing is I start to see the scene in terms of shots, and I can kind of build the scene out that way. And I really do start from the shot. I don't think every action designer works like this. I think some action designers start from the movement. I think some action teams, they say like, okay, this would be a cool move. I've seen this in like a judo tournament. Let's do the move. And then DP, you find something that looks cool. And that's a style, right? I think that a lot of the Raid was like that. I think a lot of the Furious is kind of like that. I think the Furious finds this interesting balance where, Kenji does have a visual idea of how things should be pieced together. And then there are shots where the camera is literally just trying to like follow the action and keep up, right? So it's a feeling that you kind of develop.
Yes.
Right. And, that like, I think that's just a style. But then you watch something like, I was talking about this on Instagram recently. Like, Yumo Ping did this film called Dreadnought back in 1981.
Yep.
And Dreadnought is just this like unseen gem of a film. And I recommend everybody go and see this. And when you watch the action scenes, like it feels kind of goofy sometimes, because there's this great fight where Quan Tak Hing is, the master of this opera. And there's this tailor who's sent in to assassinate him. And he's a tailor. He's going to make his suit. But he's got like these ways that he's going to kill him. And he
Right.
does all these interesting kind of things with like a tape measure, a needle,
Yep.
and all these things, right? And you just watch how it's shot. Every shot is so intentional. And there'll be a shot of a needle, there'll be a shot of a foot, there'll be a shot, and then it'll back up and you'll see, and it'll crash out. You'll see like 8 movements, really nice shapely movements, and it'll go in for the insert, right? All of it is incredibly deliberate, and it's like structured, and it feels, if that's it, it feels structured. And that's another style, and that's the style I tend to gravitate towards, which is I start from the frame because I'm very Fantasia like. I start from the frame and then I fill that frame, and I try and like keep the frame locked as much as possible, and I try not to like let it roam around to just follow things. If the frame is going to move, it needs to have a reason for doing that. I don't want other people to drive the frame, if that makes sense. That was actually the philosophy on God of War Ragnarok. The DP on that, Doria Razi, he completely changed how I think about camera, because every camera move in God of War Ragnarok, it's always motivated. There is no unnecessary, like the camera never goes, you want to see what's over there, check it out. It never does that. Like if Kratos is moving that way, okay, then we move the camera that way. So when we were designing action, you know, we would have you know, we would say something like, Dory would say something like, we got to look that way. So I go, okay, so I'll design the action to move this guy over here, or he pushes this guy and he moves it over there. Cool. And I would say, okay, I would like the action to go this way. And Dory would say, I don't want to go that way right now. And so it was this like direct link between movement and action. And that's how I see things. And again, I think that this is like just a style. And I think like when I make movies, you're kind of seeing the world the way that I see the world. And when I watch, you know, like a Sonomura movie, I'm clearly seeing the world the way that Sonomura sees the world. You know what I mean? And that doesn't mean that you have to shoot things the way that he does. You just need to shoot things the way that you see the world. So the more that you understand that, the better you are at directing camera and figuring out what to shoot.
Was there ever a time like when you were filming, like you thought you had a shot, but then you went back into like post and you were like, oh, and then it didn't actually happen the way you wanted it to, but at the time you thought it was?
Yeah. But I mean,
or when you're filming, do you like? I mean, you've done it like you know, like when you're on location and you're doing it, like this is gonna work. You know?
I think it's usually the opposite. I think I usually think that I didn't get it, and then when I'm doing it in post, I go like, oh wait, that was totally fine. I was just being hard on myself.
Right.
And I think that more than anything, like building a gag, sometimes that's where, like a joke, because you have to use a juxtaposition of shots. And that's the stuff that's kind of hard on the day. It's like, I'm not sure this is really going to play. You have to really think far ahead to plan out a joke like that. And that's kind of the thing where a lot of the time I find a joke, I'm like, that joke didn't work. Let's just cut it out. It's fine.
Are you bummed then because like you put the time and effort into it, but then I was like, I have to get rid of this because it didn't work out.
Yes, I mean,
like it's your baby. It's like you got to cut a little bit of your baby.
But if it's not funny, if it like, there's nothing sentimental about keeping a joke that didn't work.
Okay, I get it. Okay,
right.
Absolutely.
If it just doesn't work, it doesn't work. And I mean, I could convince myself all day that, well, I think it's funny, but like there was a joke, right? There's a joke in The Living where like there was this line, and I just thought it was hilarious. And when we showed it, every time I showed it, and every audience that watched it, like they never laughed. And I'm like, all right, I guess my radar is a little off, so I'm going to cut the gag, and like that's fine. I clearly have a different perspective on what's funny, and I can't be that weird. I have to I have to like at least be on the same page comedically as the audience, right?
Absolutely. All right. Well, I'm going to go into post-production now because I thank you so much for giving me this time.
This is fun.
This is awesome. I love talking to you. Like I said, you're listen, I have nothing but the utmost respect for you. Now, going back to editing. Now, you're in the editing room. You've shot your fight scenes. Now, of course, again, we touch base on it a little bit earlier, but like how important, because I've heard people say like, oh, we should just watch this clear shot of them and just move. Well, yeah, that's great and everything, but you need those up shots for like dramatic effect, for personal, so take us through your processes of how a fight scene can be edited correctly and how it can all go awry very quickly.
Yeah, again, I would say it's the same philosophy with camera work, which is, I think it was, who said it? Was it Walter Murch? Somebody said this, that dreaming is editing. So the early filmmakers, here's what's so amazing about people.
Mm-hmm.
This blows my mind. So Edison and the early filmmakers, they thought that editing would like mess up the audience, right? Like they would shoot just a shot of a minute of a guy kissing his wife or something, or, you know, whatever it was, right? And they didn't dare cut to a different thing because the shock of the audience watching a picture of a kiss and then a shot of a flower would just like ruin the experience. It would just make no sense because that's not how we see the world, right? We see things in continuity. And so it was very intuitive at the time that like you shouldn't edit. It should just be one shot. And even like you could edit conservatively, like in The Great Train Robbery, right? Where everything is still shot kind of like a theater performance, right? People, it's stage left to stage right, or stage right to whatever, camera left to camera right. And you know, they didn't want to they didn't want to mess with the audience's psychology because they thought that editing to a close-up would just screw with people. They wouldn't have an idea of what that meant. They couldn't, like, you know, but Eisenstein showed that no, if you juxtapose 2 shots, 3 shots together, it creates meaning. And that's actually how dreams work. Dreams are a collage of shots. You think of dreams, and sometimes that's why they're so difficult for us to understand. Like, you'll have a shot of, you know, there'll be a shot of your mom, there'll be a shot of a dead dog, and there'll be a shot of you killing Russian terrorists. And like, you're in your head, you're like, what does that mean, man? Like, what? And maybe it means nothing, right? They can drive you kind of mad. But you can use that same process in filmmaking to bring meaning to different shots, right? And so, that's sort of the magic of editing, and the magic of the amazing thing about people is that like we were already primed for editing before anyone edited celluloid. Right?
Exactly. Yep.
Right. And I don't think that we like somehow evolved differently as a result. I think that we've just always been like that. We've always thought in terms of editing. In fact, you kind of see in terms of editing too. And I do recommend Walter Murch's book, In the Blink of an Eye. He talks about editing on blinks, because when we blink when like new information, like it's like we've got a new idea, and an edit is sort of the same thing. And he found that he was editing the conversation with Gene Hackman. He would edit shots whenever Gene Hackman blinked, not because he was watching his eyes, but because Gene Hackman would blink on new information like a normal person would, because he's a good actor, and he would edit on new information. So even just the average human experience is highly edited, right? You don't really see all the stuff that's like in between your moments of attention. We're getting attention here, is attention here, and all the stuff in between is just kind of noise lost to the wind. So you're living in editing, and it's incumbent upon you as the director and filmmaker to figure out how you edit as you live. Are you the kind that sits in the back and just sort of watches everything go down? Exactly, are you the kind that's in there and you're kind of like putting this with that? Are you that kind? Is that how you process? Do you hate it when stuff is happening behind you? Right? Like, some people like that. Some people like the experience, like, ooh, what's back there? I can't stand it. That's why I hate Gears of War. Like, the game Gears of War drives me nuts. Because like you can't go backwards. You can't look behind you, right? But I think some people really like it. So again, I think that like depending on your own experience and how you edit your life, that should be how you edit your film.
And then again, this goes all to the arguments of shaky cam, and like, you know, that's because I've seen shaky cam that works. I've seen shaky cam where because a lot of people like, you can't see what's. I'm like, I was able to follow what was going on perfect, and I understand why they did it. You know, for the chaos factor and stuff like that. So yeah, so it's how you do it as opposed to you know, because if you see shaky cam, it's not the death nail, you know, automatically. Some people think like if you have shaky cam in your editing style or anything, it's like it's automatic that, you know, I can't watch this movie. So that's what sucks about it. But do you, what are your thoughts on shaky cam? I mean,
I think that now that this is gonna sound weird. Now that I'm a father. Now that I'm a father, I kind of appreciate other people's perspectives on life. You know, like I got three sons, and it's like they see the world so differently,
Yeah.
which makes figuring out lunch just a disaster. But or like what to watch,
Right.
but like now I'm just like kind of naturally curious. Like yeah, I'm curious how Neil Blomkamp sees the world, for example, right?
Yeah.
Like I think that when I saw District 9, I was like, I don't like the shaky. It's hard. I can't really like focus too much on the movement. But then later on, I was like, oh wait a minute, no, I kind of love seeing the world through his lens. He's a guy from South Africa. He's
Right.
clearly influenced by a lot of wartime footage and all
Absolutely.
this.
Yep.
And like now when I watch District 9, it's like this is amazing. This is a roller coaster. I get to live as this guy.
So through your
And
life experiences, it changed how you looked at it.
I
So
think so, yeah. And I'll never be able to shoot like Neil Blomkamp, and I don't think I'll ever try.
no.
Um, I'm interested in how Sonomura and Kenji Tanigaki see the world. They like Sonomura sees the world in like a way that none of us do,
Yes.
clearly, and he's
Exactly.
showing us. He's like,
Yes.
"Here's how I see the world," and we're all kind of going.
Can't you
It's a
see
little
it?
bit of a
It's like,
it's a mind freak for a lot. It's like you're on mushrooms, and but like that's why people love it. Is because they're just kind of seeing the world through his eyes. And sometimes filmmakers abuse this, right? They'll use camera shake to instill emotion, and that can feel
yes.
very abusive. I don't think that Bourne 1 really did that. I feel like later Bourne films sometimes I don't know, like maybe they were really trying to like mess with you emotionally.
You brought that up. The last Jason Bourne, I hate that movie. If you tell like that last fight in the tunnel, I can't to this day understand what's going on during that fight.
Yeah, I mean,
that's one of the few experiences I can remember walking out of theater mad after I saw a movie.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so I remember, but then, like I think there's probably a demographic of people who are like, "Wow, I really like that,because I had no idea what was going on." They're the people who are like, "What's back there? I don't know. I don't want to look." Right?
For whatever the earlier Bourne movies were like, it was chaotic and kinetic and everything, and I get it, but it slowly went like, above and beyond. I think.
Yeah, I'm not defending it, but
no. I mean, yeah.
But I do think that like it's beyond just an issue of shaky cam. I mean, like you watch like The Raid, it's arguably as shaky as Bourne Identity 1. And it's really like the editing style that's different. In fact, The Raid is way shakier than Bourne 1. Bourne 1's they're on tripods and they're on steady cams. It's just they're editing like they're kind of like opposite edits sometimes. But so yeah, my views on shaky cam are like I don't like doing it because that's not how I see the world.
It's not for okay, I get it.
But I think some people see the world that way, and it's really interesting sometimes to watch the world through their eyes.
That is a great way to present it, how you see the world. Exactly. Absolutely. Now, of course, we're on the last part here, and I'll let you go here in a little bit, but the release of a film, like going into the release of film, showing your film, and then you have a section, one pair of eyes. So give a little, how hard is it? Like, because you're putting yourself out there, like, especially if you're in the movie too. I mean, not only because, like, if you're like the director, like, yes, your name's on it, but I feel like if you're in it too, it kind of like really weighs
so stressful.
Yes. Yeah. So talk about that aspect of like you shot your film, you edit it, you put the sound and everything into it, and like how hard is this process and like instrumental?
I think that more often than not, somebody who's the main actor in a film is probably way harder on themselves than anyone else is going to be.
Do you like watching yourself? Do you watch yourself? Okay.
Yeah, I do. Okay. I didn't used to. I used to think like, oh, that guy's ugly. He moves bad. He's faking it. I used to think all that stuff.
Okay.
And I was just like, God, give myself a break, Yeah. And I think that like as you get older, you should try and edge towards giving yourself a break, give yourself grace. And again, I found that, I don't know, again, maybe it's becoming a father. I don't know. And even like, I think even being a director, learning to direct other people and giving them grace, if you can learn that, then you can start to do it to yourself. Because what happens is that if you're too hard on yourself, and this goes back to production, if you're
Right.
super hard on yourself as a director, as like the actor,
Mm-hmm.
you can't really keep that in. It'll just inevitably kind of like spew out onto everybody, and then everybody kind of walks around you like you're a time bomb, and you don't want that, especially if you're leading a shoot.
Mm-hmm.
So the more you can kind of give yourself a break, I think you have a better time making the movie. I think your performance changes significantly.
Mm-hmm.
If you're really hard on yourself, you get stiff. You're delivering lines like you start to fall into these rhythms that are very unnatural, and you're trying to copy something that you've heard recently because that's comfortable, right? Whereas if you give yourself a break and you're giving other people a break, it'll be much more natural. So I think it's the same thing when you're showing your film. People came there to look. You're creating a cinematic experience, right?
Right.
Unless you're handcuffing people to the chairs, they're there because they want to be, right? Especially if
Exactly.
they paid, right? If they
Right.
paid, oh my God, like you're it's an instant win. In
They
a
saw
sense,
the
right?
trailer and they say, "I want to put my hard-earned money into
Yeah,
this."
I mean,
Yeah.
unless you're trying to screw them, and
Yeah.
it's 90 minutes of black of nothing,
Yeah.
or if you're like, you're all over the trailer, but you're not in the movie at all, right? But like otherwise, like they're there for you.
Yeah.
They're there, and they will try to see the good and see the meaning in all this. And so, I just say this for filmmakers who are nervous about showing their film to people. It's like, give yourself a break. You may not have an absolute winner, but the number of times I've made movies that I absolutely hated watching, like like you mentioned Death Grip, it's like I have a really hard time watching that movie. I just don't
I
like
get
watching it.
well,
Yeah,
I get it because you experienced it. I don't know what you went through making it. I mean, you've talked a little bit about it to me, but
yeah,
for one, when I watch it, I like the movie. I think it's
yeah.
like,
Thank you. And I came to realize like, oh, other people are seeing something in this that I'm not.
yeah,
I don't get to own what this means to people. I don't get to
exactly,
own that. And like
exactly.
that's sort of the path of an artist, I think, is like you do the best that you can, and then but you don't get to own what it means to people, right? I think that
Now, like
it's important for you to what's that?
the dogs in Chinatown. Like, did you have a similar experience in that one?
Kind of, yeah. I mean, like, this is just not a movie that I would normally do, and I was hired to do it. It's funny because I'd done Contour,
Is it like,
and
because it's kind of like Jackie Chan, because like you
right,
emulate Jackie Chan, but like
yeah.
he went serious, and actually I think some of his serious stuff is some of his best, like The Foreigner and stuff like that. So do you feel like, hey, so you did these movies, you're just like, this ain't me, this is not what I want
Yeah, I have a hard time with that sometimes, but I know that I remember one guy told me, uh-oh, did I lose my feed?
to. Oh, I still see
There we
you.
go. We've got rain today in Las Vegas.
Oh,
Yeah, it's really
we've
muggy.
had
That's why I'm
rain
all
for the
sweaty.
last 20 days here in Florida, so this is nothing new.
Oh,
It's actually
lovely.
sunny today though, but actually go on, I'm sorry. Yes.
Lovely. I think it's
Yeah.
working its way this way.
Yeah.
But yeah, I remember talking to a guy and I was just like, oh, I can't stand watching Dogs of Chinatown. This guy was like, oh, I love that movie. And at the time I got like really angry at him. I was just like, well, you're stupid. Like you don't know but then I was like, well, wait a minute. Like he likes it because it's a gangster noir, right?
Right. Yeah.
And that's like very meaningful to him. And so I try now to kind of back away and say like, oh, you liked this thing. What did you like about this part? What didn't you like about this? You can't control that stuff. And it's just like something that maybe just comes with time. Because I definitely had like a death lock on how I wanted people to interpret my jokes, my action, everything. But I think over time I was like, no, you just gotta like let it go and let it go to people, and they're gonna take meaning from it the way that they take meaning from it.
Absolutely. I Eric, this has been great. Like I like just dissecting your mind. You just there's so much information. I think you've forgotten more about doing this stuff than any of us will ever remember. But okay, let's close with this. So let's talk about, so in terms of when you started to today. How do you see the action genre? Do you think it's gotten better for better or worse as opposed to when you started to where we're at today? I know it's probably
I
it's
was
like how do you
I was trying to get a read on the zeitgeist recently. Feel like it's been with the Furious coming out, and people are kind of saying it's the best thing since the Raid, and I'm kind of thinking like, well, what really has happened since the Raid? And we've definitely been in this like grunge subgenre of martial art film. A couple things kind of stand out, like Hardcore Henry, which is like comedic grunge. But you know, Statham, Tom Cruise, who else? Keanu Reeves of John Wick. All of our action stars are like 55 and older, right? And I can't help but think that we're still in this grunge stage of action cinema, and it's not my preferred genre. I can appreciate it, and but it's it's a complete change of the times. And at the same time, you know, all of us still want comedy. Comedy's huge on YouTube, by the way. So I don't actually think that cinema is actually a true indicator of the zeitgeist. I think that it's just kind of taken on its own form. Whereas on YouTube, there's comedy everywhere. So clearly people want to laugh. It's just when they go to it's like the cinematic experience, it just doesn't really afford much of that. And I think that that's a process issue. I think that there is like a studio issue there that makes it very difficult to make action comedy. And and what I would like to see is people not think too much about the studio system, try and ignore all that, make the movie that you want to make. The movies I want to make are action comedies. I have my heart 100% in action comedy. And the number of times I've had a meeting with distributor, sales agent, and they said, well, comedy doesn't sell well in China and Germany. And I just now I just go like, all right, I'll move on. I'll find somebody else who wants it, because I know that there are at least like 4 billion people out there who want to laugh. There are at least 4 billion people who want to laugh. And all I need is like 100,000 of those people to pay $1 to give me my money back, right? That's all I need. So I would encourage people to look beyond cinema, look beyond just the current trends in streaming and whatnot. All of it's very dark. All of it's very creative murder. It's interesting. It's fun. It's a cool genre. It doesn't have to be your genre. You should make the movie that you want to make, and you don't have to go through those channels to do it. And my book explains how.
And that book is Plug Away. Badass on a Budget, a timeless guide for zero-budget action filmmakers. A masterclass in action design from a true indie pioneer, from the one and only J.J. Loco Perry. I am yet to interview him. I'm surprised. I'm like, I need to talk to that guy.
Oh, he's great.
Yeah. I mean, listen, you got Scott Adkins. Eric is undoubtedly one of the most inventive action stars and filmmakers out there. You got Isaac, who we mentioned. Eric stands at the top tier of performers in the American martial arts film world. I mean, like, that's got to feel good, right?
Yeah. I mean, don't forget this. Yeah, there's this one. My son is so funny and so handsome, Linda Jacobus. I mean, even my own mother is a huge fan.
That's the best one. There you go.
I had to put her in there.
He has a sense of humor. It's
he's so funny.
Yes. Hey, are you gonna, like, I always have to talk about the beard. Are you gonna keep the beard? Are we ever gonna see clean shaven Eric Jacobus again, or is it the beard? I'm gonna finish
The Living, finish that movie, and then future films will probably have a different look. Is what I hope.
Hey, and I gotta ask: are we gonna see more of Walter Cook? Are we gonna see more of him? Because I really would like you to, like.
You know, Clayton and I talk about that like every few months, and nothing is really.
And I talked to Clayton.
Land.
If you don't remember, I talked to both you and Clayton when Blindsided first came out. I was pretty much just getting started. Yeah. So that's the only time I've gotten a chance to talk to him too. But yeah, I love Blindside. Like, I think that's what, like, in terms of characters, like, you know, like just the guy who makes pies, you know, and he gets all this trouble and stuff. Oh, and he's blind, by the way, you know. Yeah. So I would love to, you know, just throwing it out there. I mean, you do what you want, you know, but I'm just,
you know.
I
mean,
so anything else you could talk about?
Yeah, I mean, I'm writing a sequel to Contour, and it's called Detour, and that's a big project on the horizon that after The Living, probably pursue that one. And
now,
Lawrence
can you
Young
explain The Living?
The Living, so previously known as Bag Lady. We shot it as a short film, which is it's kind of an homage to They Live, where a couple of bums, myself and my co-star Phil Kismartoni, we find this pair of sunglasses that allows us to see who the robots are, and it sort of confirms Phil's character. He's my brother in it. We play siblings. He has this whole conspiracy theory as to why there's this big homeless problem. And, you know, it includes everything from, you know, contrails to flat earth to everything. But like one of the aspects of his conspiracy theory is the robot invasion. And sure enough, we put these glasses on and it confirms everything he believes, because clearly there's this robot roaming around with human skin. And we end up going on this crazy adventure, and we end up like right in the middle of this robot invasion.
Well, that sounds very interesting.
And we're showing the short version of that in Las Vegas on July 3rd. If anybody's in Las Vegas, you can hit me up and I'll send you an RSVP. But it's going to become a feature-length film. Right now it's a 30-minute short, but we're going to just build it into a feature.
Gotcha. And also, don't forget about your book, If These Fish Could Talk, Some Men's Unflinching Take on Violence. We talked a little bit about that at the beginning, which is a fascinating read, like I said, in terms of somebody who's grown up with action like I have. And of course, one more time, Badass on a Budget. I'm going to throw it out there. It's available now on Amazon. So make sure that you guys, if you love action, and you've grown up with it like I am, and you're interested about what it takes to actually do it and do it with the littlest means possible, this is the guy you wanted to hear from. So Eric, again, don't hang up when we stop recording, because I want to talk to you off camera for a couple seconds. But I can't thank you enough. Always a pleasure to talk to you. I can't wait till you visit again, because I love picking your brain, and I just love everything that you have to contribute to the world of action cinema. And thank you for all the great years of entertainment, my friend.
Thank you. Thanks for having this podcast too. We need more of these.
Absolutely. Hey, listen, I'm trying my hardest. All right. So with that,
don't give up like I did.
Go ahead. Listen, I'm still plugging. I wanted to take a nap, but I was like, nope, I'm talking to Eric Jacobus. I'm like, here I am. It's my day off. And I can't think of a better way to spend my day off. So again, this is the ACTION-FLIX with John Jerva, Eric Jacobus, Badass on a Budget. Pick it up. Make sure you read it. If you're interested in making action movies. And until next time, everybody, this is John saying, be nice until it's time to not be nice. Take it easy, everybody.